Hello everyone and welcome to another episode with the English Language Academy. Are you worried about your IELTS listening test? Now, a lot of people struggle with the listening test because it can often come with a lot of different obstacles in the form of accents and various topics that you might not have come across before. So what we're going to do today is something very different. I could just take this book, for example, and then just take you through the test. But this isn't always a solid predictor of what you can expect in your test. Now, there are some recurring themes, of course, that you can take from this book, and that will be quite beneficial for you. However, today we're going to do something very different. I want to expose you to something that you might not have tried before. Today we're going to listen to some radio. We're going to listen to, in particular, BBC Radio 4, which I always recommend to all of my students. Now, the thing about BBC Radio 4 is that it is a radio station which covers a wide range of topics, from politics to the environment to various social issues and current affairs. So you'll be getting a broad knowledge of subjects and topics from around the world. Now, the other thing about Radio 4, normally it is a standard Southern English accent, which is one of the more, let's say, clearer accents. Now, you may come across on the radio different accents, for example, from up north, where they talk like that, I'm from up north. Or maybe more if you come down to London, people talk like that, don't they? They're all right, you're all right, mate. So you get these various accents from the radio as well, which is really good when it comes to training your ear and trying to absorb the varieties of English, because English is really a not only a global language, but within the UK it has various regional forms depending on the geography and where the people come from. So today we're going to listen to the news. So the date is the 6th of December 2023. So the topics are very current and very up to date. And what I'm going to do is just stop the recording or the radio every now and again, and we will just dissect some of the language. Now, in particular, what you will notice when listening to the radio, you will come across, of course, phrases, but also idioms, especially in the news and media, and even in print media, for example, in the tabloid papers. You will have the use of idioms. And idioms are a very, very important aspect of the IELTS test if you want to gain that high band score. Everybody talks about getting higher than a band 7, and if you look at the IELTS test criteria, if you want to get a higher band score, you need to show that you are familiar with English idioms. So without further delay, let's start with listening. Okay guys, a full list of all the vocabulary that I'm going to pick out from this listening will be available in the description, so feel free to go through that after the lesson. So here it goes.
The headlines this morning: the government has suffered a Commons defeat.
To suffer a defeat. If we say someone has suffered a defeat, we mean that they have lost something. In this case, the UK government has had a defeat in Parliament about their new Rwanda policy, where they are trying to move asylum seekers, that is someone who is seeking refuge in another country, to Rwanda.
The government has suffered a Commons defeat as MPs voted to back a Labour proposal.
To back something. If you back something, you take one side over the other. So in this case, the opposite party has the backing of the members of Parliament, or MPs for short.
To back a Labour proposal to speed up compensation.
To speed up. Now here is a phrasal verb meaning to make something happen more quickly. So they are trying to speed up the process of compensation, that is, money that you give to somebody after they have been wronged, or money that they are owed because something bad has happened to them, particularly from a company. For example, you can also have compensation from an accident. If your car or another person's car hits your car, then normally you have the insurance. Your insurance company will pay them compensation, or their insurance company will pay you compensation. So they're trying to speed up the process of compensation for the victims of this public scandal.
To back a Labour proposal to speed up compensation for victims of the contaminated blood scandal.
A scandal. A scandal is a negative, famous event, and here they are talking about contaminated or infected blood, which was given to patients in the UK who then consequently contracted HIV or got HIV. Often you might hear the word public put in front of scandal, so the public scandal of contaminated blood.
Speed up compensation for victims of the contaminated blood scandal. Campaigners tell us what they think should happen next. The Home Secretary, James Cleverly, is heading to Rwanda to...
Heading to. If someone is heading to somewhere, they're going to that place. For example, they're heading to India. Or sometimes we can use this in a more figurative way. Like in sports, if you ever listen to sports, the commentator might say, looks like they're heading to victory, or they're heading for a victory.
James Cleverly is heading to Rwanda to sign a new treaty aimed at reviving plans to send some asylum seekers there. Also in today's programme, a former Tesla employee now turned whistleblower.
Whistleblower. A whistleblower is a former employee of a company who shares negative or worrying information about the company with the public because they believe it is harmful to the public or the workers in that company. So it's a kind of a metaphorical term because if you blow a whistle, you're trying to attract people's attention. So here they're trying to attract people's attention to an important injustice or unethical practice. So the whistleblower is normally somebody who blows their whistle or starts to tell the public about the negative practices or questionable practices of a company. So here we have someone who worked for Tesla who is blowing the whistle about electric cars and how unsafe he thinks they are.
A former Tesla employee now turned whistleblower on why he's worried about safety of self-driving cars on public roads. The wait is over for fans of the most commercially successful gaming brand ever.
Well, look who's back.
Look who's back. This is a phrase we normally use in English when we're trying to be quite sarcastic, when we don't really mean that we're not very happy to see somebody. So we use it in a very teasing, joking kind of way. So to tease someone who has returned to somewhere or has returned to something. So in English you might hear the idiom, for example, we say sometimes, he's back from the dead. Meaning, oh, it's a surprise they're back. But we're always using this in a sarcastic way.
Look who's back. The only way we're going to get through this.
Get through this. If you're trying to get through something, you're trying your best to complete a difficult task or situation. For example, I could say, you just have to get through this IELTS test, then you can relax.
The only way we're going to get through this is by sticking together.
In English, when we say sticking together, it means to stay close and support each other, especially in difficult situations. So for example, I could say that me and my friend did a project together, and the only reason we succeeded was because we stuck together.
Is by sticking together, being a team.
That's the trailer for the new Grand Theft Auto. We'll get an expert view. And
so you're a tough guy, like you're really rough guy. Just can't get enough guy, just always so puff guy.
we'll ask whether people's sexuality should remain private after Billie Eilish asked people to stop discussing her sexuality.
Sexuality. It's worth exploring this word because you might get it confused if you're asked about it. I doubt you will be asked these topics in your speaking test. It's a very kind of political or private topic. But when we refer to sexuality in English, we are not just talking about sex. We are talking about more of the identity of that person. For example, are they heterosexual? Are they bisexual? Are they homosexual? Etc. So in this case, everyone is trying to find out if Billie Eilish is either homosexual or heterosexual. And Billie Eilish is saying it's none of your business.
We'll ask whether people's sexuality should remain private after Billie Eilish asked people to stop discussing her sexuality and accused Variety magazine of outing her.
Outing her. Very interesting phrase here. If you out someone, you share personal information about them without their permission. So in this case, Billie Eilish is angry with this magazine for outing her or sharing personal information, in this case about her sexuality, without her consent. But you can also out someone if you are trying to shame them in some way. So he was outed as the murderer in the murder mystery game.
Sexuality should remain private after Billie Eilish asked people to stop discussing her sexuality and accused Variety magazine of outing her. The BBC News is read by Caroline Nichols.
So now I am going to play the recording in full without stopping it.
The headlines this morning: the government has suffered a Commons defeat as MPs voted to back a Labour proposal to speed up compensation for victims of the contaminated blood scandal. Campaigners tell us what they think should happen next. The Home Secretary, James Cleverly, is heading to Rwanda to sign a new treaty aimed at reviving plans to send some asylum seekers there. Also in today's programme, a former Tesla employee now turned whistleblower on why he's worried about safety of self-driving cars on public roads. The wait is over for fans of the most commercially successful gaming brand ever.
Well, look who's back. The only way we're gonna get through this is by sticking together, being a team.
That's the trailer for the new Grand Theft Auto. We'll get an expert view. And
so you're a tough guy, like you're really rough guy. Just can't get enough guy, just always so puff guy.
we'll ask whether people's sexuality should remain private after Billie Eilish asked people to stop discussing her sexuality and accused Variety magazine of outing her. The BBC News is read by Caroline Nichols.
So guys, that was just a brief introduction to how you can use the radio to improve your listening skills. Now look, you may not always understand every single word, but you're just trying to pick out certain key phrases. And especially when it comes to idioms or phrasal verbs, as we saw in this particular piece, it's worth just noting them down, because it won't just benefit you just for the listening to do this. It will also benefit you for your IELTS speaking test, because phrasal verbs and idioms really are the thing that separate the band 7s from the band 9. So if you can employ some of these idioms and phrasal verbs, it will demonstrate to the examiner that you have a high level understanding of native English, which is what we all aspire to, is to become native speakers. So I hope that was helpful to you. If you would like more of these kind of videos, then please let me know in the comments and subscribe. And for all of those of you who are currently taking or studying for your IELTS exam, I wish you all the best. I really want all my students and all my subscribers to succeed. So good luck and thank you for watching.